I've never been good with signs. Those little hints people say you should pick up on. I guess you could say I'm one of those people who needs things to be blatantly obvious. Maybe that's why it took so long for me to notice. But when I look back at it now, the first sign was so simple, it almost slipped right past me. It happened on a random Tuesday. I had just come home after another long, uneventful day at work. My wife, Eliza, wasn't home yet. I remember that part so clearly. There was something about the quiet of the house that felt off. It wasn't the silence that bothered me. It was the absence of her presence. She always came home at the same time, and that day, it felt like she was running late for the first time in forever. I didn't think much of it, though. Eliza was always busy, always hustling. It wasn't like I was counting the minutes or anything. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice a shift in the air when she walked in. There was something about her that night, something different. She didn't greet me the way she usually did. No kiss on the cheek, no playful remark about my day. Instead, she walked straight to the kitchen, rummaged through the fridge like she was on a mission, and muttered something under her breath that I didn't quite catch. The whole thing threw me off. "Everything okay?" I asked, leaning against the doorway. She turned to face me, but there was a coldness in her eyes. It wasn't anger or frustration, just distance. She nodded and said, "Yeah, just a long day. I'm tired." I wanted to ask more, to dive deeper into what was really going on, but I didn't. For some reason, I held back. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Maybe I didn't want to hear what I suspected was coming. But that was the first sign. The first crack in the foundation. So small I could almost convince myself it didn't mean anything. But deep down I knew. Later that evening, as we sat down for dinner, me, trying to fill the silence with small talk, and her, barely listening, I noticed something else. Her phone. It was constantly buzzing on the table, and each time, her eyes flickered toward it. She'd pick it up, glance at the screen, then quickly put it back down as if I wouldn't notice. Again, I didn't say anything, but a small seed of doubt began to plant itself in my mind. It was a harmless thing at first. A notification. A quick glance. But it felt off, like she was pulling away, just a little bit. "Are you expecting someone?" I asked, attempting to break the tension. "No," she replied quickly, maybe a little too quickly. She didn't even look at me when she said it. I didn't push it. The night passed in a strange, uncomfortable quiet. We ate dinner, watched TV, and went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her phone. About the distance I felt creeping between us. About how, for the first time in years, she didn't want to talk to me. That night was the beginning, but it wasn't the end. And I didn't know then that things would get so much worse before they got better. But I could feel it, deep in my gut. Something was changing, and I didn't know how to stop it. Or even if I wanted to. The first sign, it turns out, is always the hardest to recognize. But once you do, everything after it feels like it's been there all along. I didn't think it would escalate so quickly. It was just a phone buzzing at dinner, right? Nothing major. And Eliza was always busy, always plugged into her world. But a few days later, when I woke up and found her phone sitting face up on the counter, screen unlocked and a message from a number I didn't recognize, it felt like a gut punch. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. I shouldn't have read it. But the words on the screen made it impossible to turn away. The message was simple. "I'll see you later tonight. Can't wait to catch up." See, I froze. My mind immediately started racing. Who the hell was C? She never mentioned a C. It could have been a colleague, someone she worked with, maybe even a family friend, but something about the tone of the message made my stomach churn. It wasn't just casual. There was an intimacy in it that made my heart skip a beat. And it wasn't even the message itself. It was the fact that Eliza didn't even bother to hide it. She left her phone out, face up, as if daring me to see it. I could have asked her about it right then. I could have confronted her and demanded answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the sinking feeling that if I asked, I might hear something I didn't want to hear. Instead, I decided to wait. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I'd gotten myself worked up for nothing. But deep down, I knew this was the beginning of something I wouldn't be able to ignore. The next few days were filled with tension. I tried to act normal, but it was like there was an invisible wall between us. Every time I spoke to Eliza, it felt like my words didn't matter. She'd nod, smile, but her mind was somewhere else. Always somewhere else. And her phone, it was always buzzing. At first, I tried to brush it off as work. She had a lot going on, after all. But then I started noticing things. Little things, things I hadn't paid attention to before. For instance, she'd stop texting the moment I walked into the room. Or if we were out, she'd excuse herself to take a call more often than usual. It wasn't anything obvious, but it was enough to make me feel like I was losing her. And I hated myself for it. I hated that I couldn't confront her, that I couldn't ask her what was going on. Because I knew if I did, the answer might shatter everything I thought I knew about our marriage. One night, after dinner, Eliza excused herself to go to the bathroom. Her phone sat on the kitchen counter again, face up, buzzing with another message. The same number, same initials. See, my heart pounded in my chest as I hesitated for a moment. And then, I did something I would regret forever. I picked up the phone. The message was more than just casual now. It was personal. You know you're the only one who gets me. Can't wait for tonight. I'll be thinking about you all day. See, I put the phone down quickly, as if it burned me. My head was spinning, and I could barely breathe. I knew what I had to do now, but I couldn't bring myself to face her. Not yet. I wasn't ready. The thought of confronting her, of tearing down the walls I'd built between myself and her, felt like too much. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I buried the feelings inside me. I pretended I hadn't seen anything. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had gotten here. How had things gone so wrong? I had always been the supportive husband, always there for her, always willing to put my needs aside for hers. But now, it felt like she was slipping away, and I was powerless to stop it. The silence between us that night was suffocating. I couldn't look at her without seeing that phone, those messages. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile when she read them. And every time I reached out for her in bed, I felt her pull away just a little more. I didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't know if I could trust her, or if I could trust myself to face the truth. But as much as I tried to ignore it, I knew I had to find out. I had to know what was really going on. The questions burned in my mind, and there was no way around it anymore. The missing piece was right in front of me, and it was time to put it together. The question now was, what was I going to do with the answer once I found it? The next few days were a blur. I couldn't focus on anything, my mind constantly running back to those messages, to the feeling of betrayal that gnawed at me. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe I was reading too much into things. But I knew deep down that it wasn't paranoia. It was reality. And reality was something I didn't want to face. Eliza had no idea what was going on inside my head. To her, everything seemed fine. We still had dinner together. We still talked about our day. But the connection was gone. It wasn't just the phone or the texts. It was something deeper, something unspoken. She had distanced herself from me, and I couldn't get back to where we once were. Then, one evening, the moment I had been avoiding finally came. Eliza had come home late from work, as she often did, and when I asked how her day had been, she gave me the same answer she always did. Busy, but good. But this time, there was something different. She seemed more distracted than usual, her eyes shifting nervously when I looked at her. It was subtle, but I could see it. I could feel it. I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of the uncertainty crushed me. I had to know the truth, even if it meant destroying the last remnants of our relationship. Eliza, I said, my voice shaky, there's something I need to ask you. She looked at me, her expression unreadable, but I saw the flicker of concern in her eyes. What's wrong? She asked, her voice soft but cautious. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. It's about the messages on your phone. From C. Her face went pale. I knew I had hit the nerve I had been avoiding. She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, her lips parted as if she were about to speak, but no words came out. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. My heart pounded in my chest as I waited for her response. Finally, she let out a sigh, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I wasn't going to tell you, Henry. I didn't want to hurt you, but I guess I don't have a choice now. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. My entire body was frozen, locked in place by the weight of her words. What do you mean? Who is C? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Eliza, just tell me the truth. I added, my hands trembling at my sides. Her eyes welled up with tears, and for a moment, I thought she was going to break down completely. But instead, she stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the darkened night. She didn't speak for a long time, and I wondered if she was even going to answer me at all. When she finally turned around to face me, her face was tear-streaked, but her eyes were hard. He's someone I met through work, she began, her voice trembling. I didn't mean for it to happen. I thought it was just a friendship at first, just someone to talk to. But then it became more. And she stopped herself, as if she couldn't finish the sentence. I stood there, stunned, my mind struggling to process what she was saying. You're having an affair, I said flatly, the words feeling foreign as they left my mouth. She closed her eyes, nodding slowly. Yes, Henry. I am. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you, but it just happened. I didn't plan it. It's not like you think. But I can't keep pretending everything's fine when it isn't. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My heart ached, and for a moment, I couldn't hear anything. The room around me seemed to spin, my thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and pain. How could this have happened? How could she do this to me? How could I not see it? I don't know what to say, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. How long has this been going on? A few months, she whispered, looking down at the floor. But it's over now. I ended it. I swear, I never wanted to hurt you. But I don't know if we can fix this. I stood there, stunned, as the weight of her words sank in. I felt betrayed, but I also felt a strange emptiness, like I was watching someone else's life unfold before me. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, was standing in front of me, confessing to something I couldn't fully understand. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said softly, my voice barely audible. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I don't expect you to. I just wanted to be honest with you. I know I messed up. I didn't know what to say after that. There was nothing left to say. The truth had been laid bare, and now I had to decide what to do with it. What was I supposed to do next? How could I ever look at her the same way again? But in the silence that followed, something inside me shifted. The truth was out, and as painful as it was the first step toward whatever was next. The first step toward whatever we were supposed to become. I didn't know where we went from here. But I knew this. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The truth had changed everything. And now, I had to face the consequences. The days that followed felt like I was walking through a fog, a constant haze of confusion and disbelief. Eliza's confession hit me harder than I ever could have imagined, and as much as I tried to process it, the reality of the situation kept slipping through my fingers. My mind would replay her words over and over again. I'm sorry. It's over now. I never wanted to hurt you. But even as she apologized, I could feel the distance between us widening, like an invisible chasm opening up in the place where our relationship used to stand. Eliza tried. I'll give her that. She tried to talk about things, tried to explain how the affair had started. She said it was a mistake, that it was never supposed to go this far, that she regretted it more than I could ever know. But every word she spoke felt like an echo in my head. None of it made sense. How could someone I had loved, someone I trusted, betray me so completely? How could I have missed it all? The nights were the hardest. It wasn't just the silence between us, it was the emptiness. The space that used to be filled with laughter, with shared memories, now felt like a vacuum. When Eliza would come into the bedroom at night, she would lie there, her back turned to me, and I would just stare at the ceiling, wondering what happened to us. How had we gotten here? There was a part of me that wanted to reach out to her, to try to fix what was broken, but I couldn't bring myself to. I was too angry, too hurt. I didn't know who she was anymore. The woman I married, the one who had promised me forever, had disappeared. All that was left was a stranger lying next to me in bed. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner where we barely spoke, Eliza sat down across from me in the living room. Her eyes were red from crying, but she seemed determined to talk. Henry, I know I've messed everything up, but I'm here. I want to fix this. I'll do anything to make it right. I looked at her, my chest tightening with emotion. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the desperation for forgiveness. But the thing was, I didn't know if I could forgive her. Every time I looked at her, I saw him. The man who had taken something that was never his to take. I saw the lies, the secrets, the months of deception. And I couldn't help but wonder if our entire marriage had been a lie. I don't know if I can believe you anymore, I said, my voice barely a whisper. She flinched, but she didn't look away. I don't blame you for feeling that way. I don't expect things to go back to how they were overnight. But I'm asking you to try. Just try. The truth was, I didn't know if I wanted to try. I didn't know if I could put the pieces of us back together after everything that had happened. But more than that, I didn't know who I was anymore. Was I the man who could forgive? Was I the man who could rebuild from this? Or had I become someone else, someone unrecognizable, someone who was just trying to survive the wreckage of his own life? That night, I didn't have any answers. I didn't know what the future held for us, and I didn't know if I even wanted to. All I knew was that I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine. The truth was out, and it was tearing us apart. But as much as I wanted to blame Eliza, a part of me couldn't help but wonder, was I to blame too? I had spent so much time being the good husband, doing what I thought I was supposed to do. I had buried my own needs, my own feelings, and in doing so, I had let her slip away without even realizing it. Maybe I wasn't the perfect husband I thought I was. Maybe I had missed the signs, too. The truth was, I had no idea how we got here. But now, we had to deal with the consequences. And no matter how much I wanted to pretend it was all just a nightmare, it wasn't. This was real, and it was happening right in front of me. The next few days were filled with tense conversations, with her trying to prove she was sorry, and me trying to figure out if I could ever trust her again. But deep down, I could feel myself starting to pull away. The more she tried to make things right, the more I seemed to withdraw. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for. Maybe I was waiting for her to prove she could change. Maybe I was waiting for myself to forgive her. But most of all, I was waiting for the piece of me that had been shattered to heal. I knew something had to give. But what? What was left for us if the foundation we built our life on had crumbled? And more importantly, what would I become if I didn't find a way to move on? I didn't expect the phone call to come when it did. It had been 3 weeks since Eliza's confession, and we were still trying to figure out what the next step was. There were moments of quiet between us, and then moments where the silence was filled with too many words, too many apologies. She tried, I could see that. But the effort felt strained, like she was trying to build something on a cracked foundation, and no matter how hard she worked, the cracks were growing wider. That day, I was sitting at my desk, absent-mindedly scrolling through my emails, when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should answer. But something told me I needed to. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was just the desperation to know more, to understand what was going on behind the scenes of my own life. Hello. I answered, my voice flat, tired from the emotional weight I'd been carrying for weeks. There was a slight pause on the other end of the line, then a voice I didn't recognize. Is this Henry? I sat up straighter, immediately feeling a sense of unease. Yes. Who's this? The voice cleared its throat before speaking again. This is Chris. I need to talk to you about Eliza. I felt a chill run through me. Chris? My mind raced. The same name. The same C from the messages. Are you C? I asked, my words coming out sharper than I intended. There was a moment of silence, then a nervous laugh from the other side. Yeah, I am. Listen, Henry, I know this isn't how you wanted to hear this, but I think you need to know something. My hands were sweating now, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. What is it? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Chris said, his tone unsteady. But I need to be honest with you. Eliza, she ended things with me, but I think you should know it wasn't just a one-time thing. She told me you guys were having issues, but I had no idea how deep it went until recently. I wasn't just some fling for her. I thought we had something real. I sat there, frozen, as his words sunk in. The realization hit harder than anything I had imagined. My mind was reeling, trying to process everything he had just said. Eliza had tried to downplay it all. She had said it was a mistake, that it was over. But Chris was telling me something different. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't just some temporary lapse in judgment. I started to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. You're saying it wasn't just an affair? That it was what? Something more? Chris hesitated before answering. I didn't want to hurt you, man. But she wasn't being truthful with either of us. I thought you should know the truth. You deserve that much. The line went quiet. I could hear him breathing on the other end, waiting for me to respond. But I couldn't. My mind was spinning, my thoughts racing a million miles a minute. Every part of me wanted to hang up, to shut it all down. But the other part of me, the part that needed answers, that needed closure, told me to listen. I don't know what to say. I finally managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. I thought I knew everything. I thought I understood what happened between us. But now it feels like I don't know anything anymore. I'm sorry, Henry, Chris said quietly. I really am. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I thought you had a right to know. I ended the call without another word. My hands were shaking, my mind in a haze. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, trying to make sense of everything I had just heard. But the truth, if that's what you could call it, left me more confused than ever. Eliza hadn't just made a mistake. She hadn't just strayed once. This had been going on for longer than I realized, and it was deeper than I had ever imagined. When Eliza came home that evening, I didn't know what to say to her. She walked in as though everything was normal, like the world hadn't just shifted beneath our feet. But when she saw my face, she knew something was wrong. "What's the matter?" she asked, her voice cautious, as though she was bracing herself for something. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at her, my mind reeling. "How could you do this to me?" was the question that screamed in my head. But I couldn't say it. I didn't want to hear the same excuses. I didn't want to hear the same hollow apologies. Instead, I just asked, "What's the truth, Eliza? What really happened?" Her eyes widened, her lips trembling slightly. "What do you mean?" "I talked to Chris today," I said, my voice cold. "I know everything now." Her face paled, and she took a step back, as if the words had physically pushed her away. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. "I know it wasn't just a mistake," I said, taking a step toward her. "I know it was more than that." I saw the guilt wash over her face, and for a moment, I thought she might break down right there in front of me. But instead, she just stood there, silent. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered, her voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you, Henry. I was lost, and I got caught up in something I couldn't control." I stared at her, my heart breaking all over again. "You say you didn't mean to hurt me, but you did. You hurt me more than you could ever understand." It was the first time I'd truly said it out loud, and it hurt. It hurt more than I ever could have imagined. I didn't know what to do next. The truth had come crashing down, and now I was left standing in the wreckage, unsure of how to rebuild what was lost, or if it could ever be rebuilt at all. I didn't know what I was expecting when Eliza stood in front of me, eyes brimming with tears, her hands trembling. But I wasn't ready for what happened next. The moment she spoke, I could hear the guilt in her voice, but it wasn't the apology I needed. It wasn't the truth that would bring me closure. It was just more of the same, more confusion, more half-truths, more of the same empty promises. "I swear, Henry, I never wanted it to go this far," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake, a huge mistake, but I was lost. I didn't know how to fix things between us. And when Chris came along, I thought I could make it work. I thought I could feel something again." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to shout, to scream, to tell her that it didn't matter anymore. None of it mattered. But all I could do was stand there, frozen in place, watching her unravel before me. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the betrayal, or the realization that she hadn't been honest with me at all. The affair hadn't just been a mistake, it had been a choice. She had made a decision to pull away from me, to find solace in someone else, instead of coming to me with her pain. She had chosen him over me, and now here she was, asking for my forgiveness. "Why didn't you tell me, Eliza?" I finally managed to ask, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and sadness. "Why didn't you come to me when things started falling apart? Why did you let it get this far?" She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, as if the weight of my words was physically crushing her. "I don't know. I thought I could fix it on my own. I thought I could handle it without burdening you. I didn't want to hurt you. But in the end, I hurt you more than I could ever imagine." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. I stood there, in the same room as the woman I once loved, but I couldn't recognize her anymore. She wasn't the person I married, the person who promised to stand by me through thick and thin. This woman in front of me was a stranger, someone I could no longer trust, no longer reach. The walls between us had grown too high, too thick, to climb over. But it wasn't just her betrayal that broke me. It was the realization that I had allowed it to happen. I had allowed her to slip through my fingers, to pull away from me without ever knowing why. I had become so focused on keeping everything together that I had failed to see the cracks in our marriage. I had ignored the signs, the small changes in her behavior that should have told me something was wrong. I had failed her, too. "I'm not sure I can do this anymore," I whispered, the words barely audible, but they felt like a punch in the gut. "I don't know if I can forgive you." Eliza's face crumpled, and the tears that had been threatening to fall finally spilled down her cheeks. "Please, Henry, I'll do anything to make this right. I love you. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. But I couldn't hear her. Her words felt empty, like promises she had already broken once before. How could I trust her again? How could I go back to the person I was before all of this? Before the lies, before the betrayal, before the fear that had taken over my life. For days, we barely spoke. The house felt colder than it ever had before. We existed in the same space, but we might as well have been strangers. I couldn't even look at her without remembering everything that had happened, every lie that had been told, every part of me that had been chipped away. And every time I tried to talk to her, to understand what was happening between us, I was met with more silence, more broken promises. I had tried to believe in us. I had tried to believe that we could fix this, but I was starting to realize that maybe we couldn't. Maybe some things were too broken to repair. Maybe, after all the damage, the only choice left was to walk away. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't simple. Walking away from the person I thought I would spend my life with felt like a death in itself. I wasn't ready to give up on her, on us. But was I ever really given a choice? Had I been the one to let go first, or had she? In the end, the truth didn't set me free. It trapped me. It left me with more questions than answers, more doubts than I knew what to do with. And as I sat there, in the silence of our home, I realized that the hardest part wasn't letting go. It was accepting that there was nothing left to hold on to. So, I did what I thought I should do. I packed my things. I told Eliza I needed space, space to think, to breathe, to figure out who I was without her. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't keep living in the past, in the memory of a woman who had betrayed me. I walked out that door, not knowing if I would ever walk back in. And as I stepped into the unknown, I realized that maybe the hardest part of all was the moment I had to say goodbye to the version of myself that still believed in love, in trust, and in the person I thought Eliza was. And somehow, I knew that was just the beginning of a much harder journey. It had been 3 weeks since I left. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of questioning everything I thought I knew about myself, about Eliza, and about the life we had built together. It wasn't easy. The nights were the worst. I could feel her absence everywhere, like an ache in my chest that wouldn't go away no matter how hard I tried to distract myself. I had tried to move on, to keep busy, to pretend that life without her wasn't so bad. But every day was a reminder of what I had lost. I stayed in a small apartment, one I rented on a whim. The place wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with cheap furniture and a flickering light in the hallway. But it was mine. For the first time in years, it felt like I had space to breathe, space to think. The apartment was quiet, but the silence was comforting, not suffocating. I spent my days going through the motions, work, errands, some random TV shows I didn't care about. But it didn't matter. I wasn't really living. I was just existing, passing through life one day at a time, trying to numb the pain. And then one morning, as I was sipping coffee, trying to convince myself that I was doing okay, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. My heart skipped a beat as I read the text. "Henry, it's Eliza. I need to talk." At first, I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to leave the past where it belonged and not go down that road again. But the other part of me, the part that still remembered the woman I had loved so deeply, felt a pull, an almost unbearable need to hear her out. I stared at the message for what seemed like hours, my mind racing. What did she want? Why now, after all this time? Had she finally realized the gravity of what she had done? Was she reaching out because she regretted everything? Or was this just another attempt to repair something that couldn't be fixed? I hesitated, unsure of what to do. But in the end, I knew that I had to face this. I had to hear what she had to say. I typed back, my fingers shaking. "What do you want to talk about?" A few minutes later, her reply came through. "Can we meet? Please. I need to explain. I think you deserve the truth." There it was, the promise of more answers. More truths, more explanations. But I didn't know if I could trust her anymore. Part of me wanted to tell her to stay away, to stop torturing me with her attempts at redemption. But the other part, the part that still loved her, still cared about her, wanted to hear her out. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her, but maybe I needed closure. Maybe I needed to understand why she had done what she did. I agreed to meet her. We decided to meet at a small cafe in town. I arrived early, sitting at a table by the window, my hands restless on the surface. I kept glancing at the door, my heart pounding with anticipation. I told myself I wasn't going to let her back in. I told myself I wasn't going to fall for her words again. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I had always believed in second chances, in the possibility of redemption. I didn't have to wait long. She walked in, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore a jacket that looked like she had just grabbed it off the floor. But there was something different about her. The energy around her was tense, like she was carrying a weight she couldn't shake off. When she saw me, she hesitated for a moment, then walked over to the table, her eyes avoiding mine. She sat down across from me, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I don't know how to start this," she said, her voice shaky. "I've wanted to say so many things, but I never knew how. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I need you to hear me out. I owe you that much." I nodded, my jaw tight, my emotions running wild. "I'm listening." She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts before speaking again. "I don't know when things started falling apart between us. I didn't see it happening. But somewhere along the way, I got lost. And when Chris came into the picture, it wasn't just about him. It was about me and everything I wasn't dealing with. I didn't know how to be honest with you, Henry. I didn't know how to tell you that I was scared, that I was suffocating in my own life. I didn't know how to say that I needed something, anything, to make me feel alive again." Her words hit me like a freight train. I could feel the raw honesty in her voice, but it didn't make the pain go away. It didn't change the fact that she had hurt me. It didn't change the fact that she had made a choice that had destroyed everything we built together. "I wasn't thinking clearly," she continued, her voice breaking. "I thought I could handle it, that I could keep everything separate. But I couldn't. And when you left, I realized I had lost the only person who truly knew me. I didn't know how to fix it. I don't even know if I can. But I want to try. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm sorry. And I'll keep saying it until you believe me." I sat there, listening to her, trying to process everything she was saying. I had heard so many apologies before, so many promises to change. But this time, something felt different. The sincerity in her eyes, the weight of her words, they felt real. But could I believe her? Could I trust her again after everything? "I don't know, Eliza," I said, my voice hoarse. "I don't know if I can ever believe you again. I don't know if I can ever forget what you did." Her eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the person I used to know, the person I had fallen in love with. She was still in there, somewhere, but I didn't know if it was enough to make me want to try again. "I don't expect you to," she said softly. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I had to say it. And I needed you to hear me." The air between us was thick with the weight of our past, and I didn't know how to move forward. I had spent so much time pretending that I was okay, that I could live without her. But now, standing here in front of her, the truth was clear. I wasn't okay. I wasn't ready to move on, and I wasn't sure if I ever would be. But maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to say goodbye either. The cafe was quieter than I remembered. The low murmur of conversations around us felt distant, almost irrelevant, as Eliza and I sat at that table, caught in the quiet aftermath of the truth we had just shared. The weight of everything we had gone through hung in the air, suffocating us. But beneath the tension, something else lingered, a glimmer of something that felt like hope. I looked at Eliza, really looked at her, and for the first time in weeks, I saw the person I had fallen in love with. Her eyes were filled with regret, but they also held something else, vulnerability. She was finally being honest, and it felt like a bridge had been built between us. A fragile one, but a bridge nonetheless. "I don't know what's next," I said quietly, my voice shaky with emotion. "I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. But I'm willing to try. I'm willing to try if you are." Her face softened, and she reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly as she took mine in hers. "I'll do whatever it takes, Henry. I've hurt you more than you'll ever know, but I want to make this right. I don't want to lose you." I squeezed her hand gently, feeling the warmth of her touch. It was small, but in that moment, it was everything. I had spent so much time running from this, from the hurt, from the possibility of facing the truth. But here I was, sitting in front of the woman who had betrayed me, but who was also asking for a second chance, just like I had once done for her. The truth was, I didn't know if things would ever be the same. I didn't know if I could ever fully heal from the pain of what had happened. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't ready to give up on us yet. "I'm scared, Eliza," I admitted, the words coming out in a rush. I'm scared that things will never be the way they were. I'm scared that I'll never trust you again. But I'm also scared of walking away without knowing if we could have something better. She nodded, her eyes never leaving mine. I understand. And I don't want you to trust me blindly. I want to show you that I can change. I want to prove to you that I'm worthy of your trust again. I took a deep breath, the weight of the decision settling into my chest. It wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick. But I was willing to try. For us. For the love we once shared. For the chance at rebuilding something real, something stronger. I think we both have a lot of work to do, I said, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. But maybe that's what we need. Maybe we need to build this from the ground up. Eliza's face lit up with relief, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a spark of hope in her eyes, a hope that mirrored my own. I'll do whatever it takes, Henry, she whispered. I promise. We can do this. Together. We sat there for a while, our hands still entwined, letting the silence wash over us. The world around us seemed to fade away as we simply existed in that moment. A moment of fragile possibility, of something that was broken but not beyond repair. And in that moment, I realized that the road ahead would be long and uncertain. But it didn't matter. As long as we were willing to walk it together, there was a chance. A chance for healing, for growth, and maybe, just maybe, for a love that was stronger than the one that had been tested by betrayal. We weren't starting over, we were starting something new. And that was enough. The future was unwritten, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of what it might hold. Together, we would write it. And that was the only thing that mattered.